Rights have been acquired. Will this mean more movies, more games? And is this even a good thing? Hello and welcome to The Broken Sword. Today I'm giving you some interesting developments in the world of Middle-earth.
Build me an army worthy of Mordor.
So there has been some big news coming out over the last day or so that the Embracer Group has acquired IP rights to The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Now, Embracer Group is a Swedish video game company, and what they've done here is acquire Middle-earth Enterprises, which was a division of the Saul Zaentz company who own the intellectual property catalogue to everything like The Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit. But what does this really actually mean? Well, the deal means that the Embracer Group will pick up the motion picture, video game, board game, merchandising, theme parks, and stage production rights relating to the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit franchises, as well as matching rights in some of the other Middle-earth written works which have been authorised by the Tolkien estate and HarperCollins, but these have yet to be explored fully. So in other words, everything that we know from the movies that so many people have grown up on and associate so much with Middle-earth is now in the hands of this company. You may have heard of Middle-earth Enterprises in the past, but that old part of the company will now form part of this newly founded group. So they haven't been disbanded as such, people haven't lost their jobs, they have now just been moved over to be run by someone else. It's interesting to know that Embracer's operative group, called Asmodee Group, has a long-standing relationship with the Tolkien IP, as in the past they have actually released the Lord of the Rings board game, and this was over 20 years ago, as well as producing the Lord of the Rings card game. So there is definitely a history of these working together, and a sign that some of the stuff they've put out in the past is actually pretty good. So much of the artwork for the card game of the Lord of the Rings is just incredible, and as we've seen already from a few little sneak releases, that there is more art coming out with a new Lord of the Rings themed Magic the Gathering game, and it just looks so incredible. I have dabbled in Magic the Gathering in the past, but I'm definitely going to try and collect some of the Lord of the Rings stuff, even if it's just for the artwork of the cards. I just think it looks incredible. But anyway, that is really part of a different story. It'll be really interesting to see exactly what happens with this new merger. Part of the initial statement says about how there are actually other opportunities, including exploring additional movies based on iconic characters such as Gandalf, Aragorn, Gollum, Galadriel, Eowyn, and other characters from the literary works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and continue to provide new opportunities for fans to explore this fictive world through merchandising and other experiences. So, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I don't really know, and I'm very much torn on what this could mean for the future of Middle-earth. One thing that we don't get as big fans of Tolkien's work is much adaptation. We had the animated movies a fair time ago, then we had the Peter Jackson trilogies for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but outside of that we haven't had much else. Now of course, Amazon are now creating the Rings of Power show, we have the War of the Rohirrim movie due out, as well as a couple of mobile games like the Rise to War that's already out, or the Heroes of Middle-earth that's due out in the next couple of years, although I'm not sure on the exact release date of that. So things were actually starting to pick up a little bit anyway, but with this new changing of IP holder, I think it could very much speed everything up. But I do actually have a few worries of this, and I will be talking a little pessimistically for a moment, but hopefully you understand why. I've also been massive fans of Star Wars or Marvel and a lot of these other franchises, but a big issue these days is an oversaturation of those markets. I cannot keep up with all the Marvel stuff they release these days. They've released movies where you need to have now seen TV shows to understand truly what's going on, or at least understand the backstory to some characters. And to be honest, I personally, between work and family, do not have the time to watch every show they put out if I want to watch anything else at all. So it means that I just miss out on some content. Now I understand if you are a massive Marvel fan, getting loads of content can be great, but I've also heard mixed things about them doing this. And I feel the same has happened a bit with Star Wars. They gave us the sequel trilogy, which was at best okay, and then they gave us a few TV shows. They gave us The Mandalorian, which was an absolutely incredible show. Absolutely loved it. Can't fault it. But then they gave us things like The Book of Boba Fett, which was, well, sequel trilogy worthy. And that is something that I really dread happening to Middle-earth. I don't want to go and get a Gandalf film, an Aragorn film, a Gollum film, a Galadriel film, an Eowyn film, all close together, and it just becomes a bit too much. For one, they're going to have to make up a lot of these stories because there's not that much of them outside of the Lord of the Rings written, so they're going to have to piece many things together. And we've seen already from the Rings of Power that people may not be too welcoming to that idea. Just the one thing I do dread is getting Middle-earth burnout. Okay, maybe if their plan was in fact to release one of these movies every 3 years, put a lot of effort into it, make each one a spectacular event, I could probably get behind it a bit more. However, if they're more interested on getting something out, at least 1 or 2 things a year, maybe a film here, a TV series here, then a game, and then something else, and then something else, and then something else, just to get as much money in as possible, that is where problems are going to lie. I don't think there's many people who wouldn't like to see a young Aragorn TV series. When that was the first initial rumours for what the Rings of Power turned out to be, people were quite excited. Yes, everyone was saying that there's so much you could explore, so why go to young Aragorn? But now that we're getting what we're getting, I think a lot of people would turn back and go, actually maybe young Aragorn wouldn't be too bad. What you don't want though is a low budget show with a generic action kind of feel and not a true Tolkien-esque world built around it. His work deserves so much better than that. And another point to touch on is with someone like Gandalf. Now, I will admit, I grew up on the movies, of course. I'm never shy to admit that. That's how I got into Tolkien's world. And so to me, Gandalf is Sir Ian McKellen. I feel his performance is perfect as that character. And the thought of seeing someone else portraying him is just awful to me. I really don't want to see it, at least just yet. However, I understand that Sir Ian McKellen is not going to be around forever, and probably realistically, he's a bit too old to be doing most stuff with him now. Yes, he could probably deliver some great dialogue scenes and a few bits like that, but if it involves much movement, especially obviously any battle scenes, which he didn't do much of anyway, I'm not sure he's going to be able to do any of that. So there may come a time when they're going to have to recast some people that are just iconic to us. And the Rings of Power have already done this, of course. I think Morfydd Clark is an incredible choice to play Galadriel. Even if you see young pictures of Cate Blanchett, she does look fairly similar, and in a biased opinion for myself, her being Welsh just makes it a little bit better. Love seeing people from Wales doing well, but that's not really the point for this. My worry is they're just going to pick someone who's not ideal for the role. My worry is that if they try to do something, it's either going to just try and be a Sir Ian McKellen Gandalf ripoff, in which case it just feels more like a fan film, or they're going to go so drastically different it might take away from the character himself. But that's only one way of thinking about it. The other side, and the more positive side, because we've got to be slightly positive when we can as well, is that it could just mean we get so much more stuff. Like I said, I would love to see the adventures of young Aragorn going off on adventures with Elladan and Alor here, see the meeting of him and Arwen, see them fall in love, and see all the times he's gone off into Rohan or Gondor as Thorongil, and even met people like a young Theoden. I would love to see all those adventures on the screen. I am a movie guy, I love seeing these things, and I think they could be done so well. I mean, I'm incredibly excited about the War of the Rohirrim movie that's due out. I would love more animated stuff. I think animation lends itself so well to the world of Tolkien, especially if you want to go back to earlier ages as well. Now, I know these rights are more about the film trilogy, so I don't think they'll get much of the First Age or anything like that. That seems to be what Amazon are keeping hold of, but doesn't mean it wouldn't work. Maybe we could even get some series about the wars with Angmar, the fall of Arnor, anything like that at all. I understand there is an oversaturation, but if they spread things out well, give us a TV series one year maybe, then give us a movie the next year, and then maybe a game, but don't just overload it with several series, several movies, and just make things for the sake of making things for the sake of making money. And that's kind of what it all comes down to, is are they doing this just to pump stuff out and try and make a big profit? Now yes, it's a company, they're going to try and make a profit, but you just hope that the people at the top are at least passionate about the works they're going to do, and that will come across in what is made. It doesn't take long to look at The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson put every inch of his soul, along with his team, into making those movies. The amount of pre-production work that was done, the amount of time spent, the amount of sleep they didn't have to make everything just right, comes across on screen amazingly. It's the reason that so many people even discovered Tolkien. They were just, to me, the perfect movies. But then you get The Hobbit, same director, same world, but he was rushed into it. He was thrown into things last minute. He was then added an extra movie on. It was just too much. There wasn't the same passion in every step of it. There was almost a bit of, okay, I've got to do this now. I've got to try and live up to the Lord of the Rings, but we got to do something slightly different. And it backfired. What you really wanted them to do was postpone everything by a couple of years. Yes, people would have been frustrated, but at the end of the day, they could have done everything right again. However, the whole discussion of The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit is one for another day, and actually something I am looking to work on at the moment. I'm very interested to hear about people's thoughts on their favourite moments from The Lord of the Rings and least favourite from The Hobbit, kind of just seeing how they're comparing, so why not leave me a comment of that kind of thing below anyway, but that's not really the point for the end of this video. As I'm just going to round this up now, as I am feeling like I'm starting to ramble. Basically, the news has been Embracer Group are the new holders to the rights to so much of the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit work, including some of the literary works as well, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens next. I don't expect anything in the next year or two. They're going to just starting to be working on things now, but maybe in 5 to 10 years we'll be overloaded with Middle-earth content and it could be the best thing ever, or it could be a franchise killer. I'm going to go for the best thing ever, keep my fingers crossed, and just hope that every time we go back into Middle-earth in the future, it is one hell of an experience. And so, thank you for staying with me today, listening to my rambling about the news that's just come out, and now I would love to know from all of you what you think about it. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? And let me know why, more importantly. And with that, thank you for spending just a few minutes of your day with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.